it was actually probably one of the hardest fix and flips you can probably have as a new beginner. It was a full gut job. It was a fire damaged property. The floor joists were in the dirt, and like what you can imagine, everything that went wrong in this particular.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome again. God, pinch me, guys. Pinch me. I'm so excited to be here, guys. Super grateful. Today, I have the opportunity to be here with Phillip Thai. He started his real estate investing journey back in 2017. So he's crushing it, yo. He's completed over 50 fix and flips. He's wholesale over 80 properties and currently manages about 15 units. And not too long ago in a distance, he acquired a landscaping business here in Georgia. That is amazing, man. Yeah. But lastly, I wanted to say he's just not a badass in business. He can also take you down. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So Phillip, man, super grateful to have you today here with me, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Edgar. Appreciate the invitation, man.
Yeah, awesome, brother. You know, I recently pivoted into what's the capital side of the business. You know, I've been learning more about it, how people can passively earn money, right, and investing in real estate, and also possibly businesses like multifamily or business acquisition.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start the journey talking about, you know, 7 years ago when you started, right? How did you see yourself, right? Like when you were talking about money and fixing and flipping, or did you do wholesale? Did you use other people's money there? Fill us in right there. Start us off from there. What did you think about money as far as, you know, investing?
I know I didn't have enough of it. So that's the first thing about it, right? So when I started real estate investing back in my journey, 2017, I realized that I had a money issue. And I was a software engineer at the time, so I made good money, but however, it wasn't enough money to obviously retire off of. I know a lot of folks that join real estate investing or get into real estate investing, their motives could either make more money, but for me, I was trying to retire early so I can become a father. So in the sense of money is that I knew it took money to make money. I think everybody knows that in some sort of fashion. And so, you know, as a software engineer, we just Google a lot of things, and one thing led to another. I went down to a funnel and then went to a sales funnel. Basically, I ended up joining Fortune Builder, which was basically $35,000 to $36,000 at the time was my first education for real estate investing. And obviously that's a lot of money to anybody. And so how do you come up with that money? Right. So I end up leveraging OPM, other people's money. In this case, I leveraged some of my own capital for the down payment, but I also leveraged my credit cards to be able to make those to pay off the rest of it. Right. So I leveraged, put all of it on a credit card, and then I just made payments over time on a 0% interest rate credit card. And what that did was basically put me against the wall. So I really didn't have an opportunity to fail. I mean, I did, but it gave me an opportunity to win too as well, to like really succeed and really put all my eggs in one basket. And so that's kind of how I started my journey in real estate investing.
No, brother. So you use the credit card, right? And typically when people think about credit card, right, they think about bad debt.
Yeah.
You use it for your advantage, right? It's like, I'm going to use this to better myself, right? And that's so important.
Well, I will say that I had an advantage too as well when I was a lot younger. My mom listened to Susie Harmon or whatever back in the day, and she's an immigrant. She's came here overseas, right? She lost everything in Vietnam War, and then she came back. She came here to start a new life, and so she didn't know anything about financial stuff, financial literacy. She wasn't the best, but she listened to people that were smarter than her. And then one of the advice that she got was to start a credit card for your younger kids when they're like in their when they're young, basically, and then just use that credit card to, you know, buy groceries and gas and just pay it off every single time. So that way you build credit. So I actually had a good start from my mom to be able to leverage credit card, and my credit score went up because of that.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Good tip for parents there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so you got past that, you started, right? You went $35,000 in, you learn and grind. When you got to your first fix and flip, right?
Yeah.
How was that transaction when it comes to acquiring the property? Did you use hard money? Did you use private money? Did you just say, I have $150,000 cash, I'm just going to buy it? Walk us through that transaction.
Yeah, I wish I did have $150,000 in cash. I don't think I'll be in real estate investing. I'll probably blow it off of like, I don't know, stocks or whatever. But what I did was I had a little bit money saved up. I had about, I think, $20,000 to $30,000 at the time, and I utilized hard money to be able to buy my first asset. And it was a institutional hard money lender. It wasn't like your
Mm,
private money hard money lender. So I went through the whole process of submitting a loan application. I submitted like documents about a scope of work, and then all the other documents associated with LLC and all the other things that you can imagine. And then I had a certain amount of reserves in regards to be able to get the loan. Um, how I got the first deal, right? And that's the most important thing I think is like financing is everywhere, but getting your first deal is the
mm,
hardest part. I leveraged the network that I and basically paid for, which was Fortune Builders, um, and it wasn't an easy fix and flip. It was actually probably one of the hardest fix and flips you can probably have as a new beginner. It
mm.
was a full gut job. It was a fire damaged property. The floor joists were in the dirt, and like what you can imagine, everything that went wrong in this particular
Oh my God.
property. I mean, it's crazy. I had squatters. I had people steal my wire. I had to rewire. I had all kinds of stuff happen to it.
Wow.
But it was a huge learning lesson in regards to that. I didn't lose any money, but I broke even and learned a lot of lessons along the way. So
Mm,
to kind of circle back, I used hard money. And then the remaining amount of funds that I needed to be able to complete the rehab was I funded myself through my job
mm,
because I did not feel comfortable risking someone else's money to be able to fund the rest of my rehab, even though I didn't have any experience, I didn't have anything to show for. So in this case, I had to build credibility, and I would
absolutely.
rather use my own money instead of borrowing someone else's money. And if I failed, I wouldn't want that liability or burden on my conscience. So that's what I end up doing.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I think all of us, as we're going through these journey of growing and learning a new business, right? There is those hard lessons where you learn, and it's like, okay. Uh,
Yeah,
I remember I did my first PML deal, and I remember that instance. I was like, what was I doing?
yeah, I understand that too as well.
Yeah, so interesting, right? You were able to break even, which is exciting. You learned a lot from it.
Yeah,
Um, and then at that point, you I'm assuming you gain more momentum, right?
yeah,
You were able to get more deals, because one thing that you did mention was the importance of the deal,
yeah,
right? And maybe we can highlight that a little bit, because it's so important, right? Especially that people that want to invest in real estate
yeah.
understand, right, that deal. And you
Right.
kind of broke it down a little bit as far as what you got yourself into.
Yeah.
But if you were to help us, now that you've learned and you've gone through, over 50 fix and flips, what are
Yeah.
some of the key takeaways for a passive investor that wants to invest in a fix and flip? What should they ask? Or like
Yeah.
3 or 4 questions you would want to ask.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so there's so many questions you can ask, but if I had to boil it down to maybe 3 to 4 questions, I would basically preface this as like you're basically betting on the jockey, not the horse. So you're betting
Mm,
on the actual person that will be managing the fix and flip, not the actual asset itself. That's who you're
mm,
betting on. And so, with that in mind, you're going to want to know the experience of that person that's borrowing the money. Um, so, ask about their experience level, ask how many fix and flip they've done, if they have any cross collateral that they could leverage to protect your money first and foremost, because you have to consider you as the asset as a lender because they're coming to you as a borrower.
mm,
Next, I would ask about what kind of securities outside of cross collateral, what kind of securities can the borrower offer outside of the main asset that they're borrowing against. Next, I would actually ask, what kind of position are you being in? Like, are you in
mm,
first or are you in second position? Now, if you're in second position, does the hard money lender, do they allow second lien positions, right? And if they don't, then just that probably isn't a good deal for you regardless. because it doesn't make sense for you to be not in compliance with the first lien position, because they can call the note due. I know I'm probably speaking a lot of different terminology here, but like it's just another way to saying they don't like having people behind them in the loan stack. And if they do, they can basically say, hey, the money that I borrowed, the one I lent to you, there's a borrower, all that money is due. So
Right.
be very, very mindful of that. And so those are like probably 3 questions that I would basically ask, the general topics of it. And then one last one that I would probably consider would be, what is the worst case scenario
Mm.
of the deal, and what is your involvement as a lender going to be, right? Because you want to know all, if they've even thought that through. That will basically give you a sense of planning of the, if the borrower is being able to plan ahead, right? Think of the lender's involvement and their consideration. So yeah, those are the 3 to 4 questions that I would ask, but there's so much more that you probably
Right.
asked too as well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, those are excellent questions. Those
Yeah.
would be definitely top 4, right? The
Yeah.
jockey, their experience. I just recently had an experience where I had a fix and flipper, and he was looking for money for his first fix and flip,
Yeah.
and it's a full gut. I was like, "What are you getting yourself into, my friend?"
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't lend the first time fixing flippers. Um, there are institutions out there that do it, but if you're more of a newer private money lender, I wouldn't put yourself in that predicament.
Yeah, yeah, and especially knowing it's a full gut. Oh my
Yeah,
God, what do you?
yeah, and and I will say, if you as a lender don't have experience in the realm of fixing and flipping, and you are lending on a full gut, and let's say you have to take back the property, will you be able to finish that full gut?
What's
Is
your
what you need to
experience,
ask
right?
yourself.
Do
Yeah,
you have the
exactly.
resources to be able to finish it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it, man. The way you explain those four, broke down those 4 questions, because it's so important,
Yeah,
especially when it comes to other people's money, right? There's this big
100%.
thing about people always say, "Oh, use other people's money," right? But you want
Yeah.
to make sure it's secure, right? It's an
Mhm.
investment. You're not donating, right? You want to put your money to work and other people's money to work. So those 4 questions are a must, guys.
Yep.
And then pivoting into, we were talking about private money lending, and we're in the same community of what we call the Gator method, right?
Yep.
That's another form of lending in real estate. Because even within Gator lending, there's, like, I guess, different, right? There's a
Yeah.
transactional lending, there's a private money lending. What type of Gator lending are you currently are you currently doing any Gator lending,
Yeah.
or?
I am. So I've done all kinds of Gator lending except for a couple of them. I've done EMD, earnest money deposits. I've done double closings. I've done actual PMLs. I've done connecting, meaning I'm connect a borrower to a lender. I've done Gator wrestling, terminology meaning a group funding of a deal, more or less. So I like to lend on deals that are more of I would say betting on the jockey per se. So
Mm,
PML deals that have a great rate of return. If we become money partners, then I like to be in and out of a deal of 3 to 4 months at maybe a 20% equity partnership split of the gross profits. Or sorry, of the net profits, and so that makes more sense for me.
mhm.
And then I can also provide expertise if the person's a little bit more not as seasoned as I am. And then, like the best deals that you probably know of is the EMD deals. They're in and out within 30 days, no more than 45 days, and you get a great rate of return. So I've done most of all the Gator, but I'm not 100% active in it. I just kind of cherry pick the ones that I like, and I say a lot of no's. I have a lot of no's that I say to, and that's basically what I'm looking for, like sub to 20,000 and of a loan, and then I like to get people involved. Like let's say if the loan is for $60,000 and it's a great borrower, I like to actually rope in a little bit more like same level, if not seasoned, Gator investor, and then I can rope in a newer Gator just so they can learn the process. So that's what I like
Nice.
to do. Yeah.
Man, I love that, man. You're bringing in other people from the community, helping them
Yeah.
secure their money, and make it a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
That's pretty
And
awesome.
And
Thanks
it
for
does
doing
something
that,
too as
Philip.
well. It makes them learn, the new person, but it also helps you as the lender to see maybe things that you don't see by asking those other folks, like, "Hey, am I missing anything here? Do you guys have any questions?" And so it puts more eyes on the deals to make sure that you're not missing anything that might be detrimental to the group.
Yeah. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the security, right? Because there's a
Yeah,
different level of security when it comes to an EMD
yeah,
and we can just touch on EMD and maybe we'll touch on double close. But
sure.
from you, that you've performed EMD, what are like two or three things, right, when it comes to ensuring that your money's secure on that type of transaction?
So there's always paperwork involved, right? Um, what PACE teaches and what I've known to be kind of based on experience is that we get the borrower to sign an agreement with us as a lender, and then we get the borrower to sign a uh, a document between the borrower is the buyer at this particular point in time because they're basically buying the
Mm-hmm.
property with the seller, making sure that the seller's okay if the EMD is released from escrow if the lenders don't feel comfortable. Right, you got to have that protection in mind, and then we want to have another paperwork. I don't know if it's paperwork, but more of a confirmation, like from the escrow or the attorney saying that, hey, we are lenders and we are only acting as lender on this particular transaction. And if we don't like what's happening, we have the ability to pull our money out of escrow. So we want to make sure that they are aware of that. And if any paperwork is needed to be signed by borrower and lender, and then having that sent over to the attorney's office or title company, then we will do that as well. So that's like one of the most important things that we
Mm-hmm.
like to basically make sure that everybody's that's involved in the transaction understand our role um, and that whole process. So did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the paperwork, right, is one
Yeah,
of the most important things, and
exactly.
it comes to when EMDs is that inspection period.
Yep. Yep.
Because that it could be, hey, you need to make sure you pull that money out if they
Yeah.
have not found a buyer before that inspection period,
Yeah.
because your money could just go hard, meaning it stays there, then you
Yep.
can't recover it.
Yeah, you
Um,
have that, and then you have so you have the purchase agreement too as well. So if it's an EMD, if it's a wholesale deal, Fred had mentioned, you got to understand, like, if it's a wholesale deal, does the borrower have an end buyer already in place? So the A to B contract is the A is the buyer, B is the seller, and then does the borrower has a B to C contract, meaning the borrower or the wholesaler to the end buyer. If
mhm.
that's not in place, then you probably will have to go off the timelines of the purchase agreements based on the inspection/due diligence period. If that is coming close, then you should, understand those timelines and be able to set, pull out dates in case they don't meet the requirements that are met. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So we touched a little bit
Yeah.
about PML lending. We touched a little bit about transactional lending. I wanted to switch gears there a little bit and talk about some of those big boy pant deals, as
Sure.
Carl Allen calls them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funding business acquisition side, right? I think
Sure.
I put multifamily on that business side because it is
Yeah.
a business, right? So you became a limited partner
Yeah.
and the multifamily you acquired. Talk to us a little bit about that type of transaction when it comes to money. How much, what did you need to be an accredited investor? Was it a
Yeah.
non-accredited or?
Yeah, yeah. So to kind of circle back to network, it's all about the network on who you know and what people are doing. And
Mm,
so this particular LP deal that I end up being a part of, it's a 40 unit out of Buxton, or which is basically the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And how that deal kind of transpired was that I was actually borrowing money from a private money lender
mm,
for probably like a couple of years now. And so I paid him back every single time, on time, every time. He just basically lent on fix and flips for me. And at the time, we had such a good relationship with each other, that he actually asked me if I would be open to investing in another deal, like an apartment deal. I think it was a 16 unit apartment deal out of Richmond, Virginia. And I was like, yeah, sure. And it was like an 8% equity stake for $50,000.
Wow.
So it's a lot of money. But if you're fixing and flipping, you need to be able to invest that money because taxes will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So I end up saying, sure, I'll invest $50,000 into this deal. And my lender was basically going to be managing it and doing the renovations and all that stuff. So for me, it was just a silent partner, and it was basically pretty easy. And so we held that deal for about a year I think it's probably 2 years, right through COVID. And then one thing led to another. They got an offer on it. They got an offer of something plus million. I think we end up probably having a 40 to 50% increase in value in that short period of
Wow.
time. So it was a great. So when he got that offer, he ended up telling or asking me if I wanted to cash out or if I want to do a 1031 exchange into the next opportunity. And so the next opportunity was that 40 unit down in
Mm.
Buxton, North Carolina. And I was like, dude, I'm gonna go with that rollover thing. I don't need the money now, right? Um, so that's what we all end up doing. We end up basically buying that 40 unit down in Buxton, North Carolina, I think for like $3 million or whatever. So it was actually a pretty cheap asset when it comes down to it, for 40 something units. And we closed on it during COVID. And what it is right now is basically half of it's long-term rentals, and then the other is short-term rentals. And the long-term rentals pay for the underlying debt, and the short-term rentals are like basically profit at this particular point in time. And that's how we got into that deal. Is like we just chose the right partners, we chose the right people to partner up with, and network is a huge thing. So
Mm.
I would go and start networking if you haven't already. If you're a shy person, just break out your shell. I mean, honestly, if you can't do that, then you'll probably stay poor. For me, I was a software engineer, so I was always behind a desk, like always an introvert. So I had to like break out of that shell, and how I did that was just setting goals that were bigger than myself, and that will help you get out of your own way. So that's kind of like how I got into that 40 unit deal.
Dude, that's amazing, man. That's a cool story. How
Yeah.
it went from a small unit. You said it was an 8 unit, 16
16
unit.
units. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
So,
God, how it valued like 40%.
yeah, it was crazy because we added value to
Wow,
it. We updated the units, and then we stabilized it, and then we just got an offer, and then we sold it. Now it's back on the market. Funny enough, it's funny. So,
wow.
so yeah,
So, do you see yourself becoming more of a passive investor in a multifamily side of the business when it comes to real estate, or are you
yeah.
still, where do you see yourself as far as being that passive investor in?
You know, um, I can't say for sure if I like being a passive investor because I'm a very active person. I like doing stuff,
Mm,
and for now, I think it's a good for me when I'm thinking out loud here. I like the blend of both, being active just enough where I'm like not bored, but I'm
mm-hmm.
also fulfilled, while having passive income come through every single month, and just being also like if I need to just not work that day, I don't have to sweat bullets, right? So uh, I think it'll be a mixture of a 50-50 blend in the future. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, we need to do something. We need
yeah.
to stay busy, man. We need to keep our mind sharp.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
And then, the last one that I wanted to rope in here was talking about the landscaping business you
Yeah,
acquired, right? Um, that was amazing, man.
sure.
Being with the Carl Allen, how did you use the acquisition side? Like, I think it was, I'll let you,
Yeah.
share how you guys acquired that and how did money play into that? How
Yeah,
much money you have to give down or how much did you have to finance and stuff like that?
sure. So, everything kind of goes back to network. I know it's kind of cheesy and corny to say, but I end up going to an event in the DMV area, like Virginia, Maryland, DC area, and I was a guest speaker at the time. And so I was starting at Carl Allen's program, and I basically started generating leads across the United States for business acquisitions. And so I had a lot of leads that came in, and I didn't have enough time to call. And so, funny enough, I found another person that was in the Carl Allen mentorship program, protege, and he had a deal that he couldn't dispo, but he had a very, very motivated seller. And the deal was basically the landscaping business. I'm like, oh, dude, it's perfect. I can probably dispo that for you. But in return, I have a lot of business leads that I can't call. Can you call them? He's like, yeah, dude, I love calling people. I'm like, perfect. So we end up partnering up together, and I end up putting a post out on the deal maker like circle or community, and end up giving a lot of details associated with the business. And so one person reached out to me, it's Forrest, and so he's my business partner now. He lived at the time in Pennsylvania, and the business is in Georgia. So I'm like, he's like, dude, I might be interested in this. And then fast forward a few months later, he's like, okay, let me just talk to the seller. I'm actually interested in buying this, because he did his own due diligence on industries. I'm like, okay, I'm just kind of curious of what your assets are, like what you have a skill set. He ended up saying, like, I own a marketing company, and what you really need to do is just beef up the marketing and systems. I'm like, it makes sense. And then so we end up negotiating something along the lines of like $15,000 assignment fee. And that's all we really wanted. That's all we wanted, because it was a really small business. So it was like a $430,000 revenue with about $100,000 in net profits, right? So nothing like you can't take that profits and just pay everybody. It's going to be hard because you're going to grow that business, right? And so, uh, he kind of Forrest countered back with like, hey, I'll give you guys the $15,000, but I'll give you guys 10% equity each, my partner and I, making a 20% equity stake in the company if you guys will stick on and be the M&A side, the merger and acquisition side of things, meaning continue to generate leads for us to acquire, call them, qualify them, and then try to merge them in. We're like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, that's fine. Like, that's cool. Like, I didn't want any ownership in this, but I'll take free ownership and equity if I got to do the same thing over and over again, what I'm doing right now. So it really wasn't a sweat, and it kind of worked out for the best. And so we all took a road trip down to Georgia, all three of us, and Forrest picked us up in his car. He just basically from Pennsylvania to DC, which was my partner Noble, and then me in Virginia, and then we just went down to Georgia. So we met with the seller, and Forrest basically negotiated everything to the deal structure of 0 down. The original seller wanted 10% down of a purchase price of 200 and I think 40 or 30 at the time. So he wanted like $23,000 down, but Noble negotiated $10,000, and then Forrest negotiated down to 0. And how he got that was that the seller wanted some equipment that was on the balance sheet, and so what Forrest ended up doing was like, how about you take that equipment that you want, and then we'll just deduct that from the purchase price and the down payment. And so that's what we end up doing. So we end up doing that. We end up basically doing a kitchen table closing at the seller's house. For me, it was kind of awkward and like weird, because I normally do closing in an attorney's office. I'm like, this is like a handshake deal. Like, this is crazy. So funny enough, the following day, we opened a bank account, and then we actually got paid for acquiring the business, because we took over the working capital of that business. So I think we ended up taking over like $20,000 of working capital. So it was kind of crazy. So we basically got paid to buy a company, but we ended up structuring a deal where we put 0% 0 down. We structured payments for I think 4 years at $230,000 purchase price, and that's how we structured it. And then the seller will be in the company for I think like no more than 6 months in the company.
Wow, that is awesome, man.
Yeah.
Congrats, brother. I love the way you guys started thinking outside the box, right? When you're trying to create this structure or figuring out how to structure this deal where you guys can get the best out of it.
Yeah.
and
For
made it a
sure.
win-win for both sides, right? The
Yeah.
owner of the previous owner, they were able to get the equipment they wanted, and you guys came out with zero out of pocket.
Yep.
That's amazing, brother.
Yeah. Those good times.
So, I know you're still, you're still hunting and trying to
Yeah.
get some more acquisition, more businesses to acquire. I'm assuming you want to roll them
Yep.
into, right, the
Yep.
landscaping business you have here in Georgia.
Yeah, exactly. So we are in the process of acquiring, or probably already acquired, an irrigation company to be a
Mm,
bolt-on. And then we're actively seeking other landscaping companies in the Sunbelt states too, as well. So if anybody's listening to this that has a landscaping company they want to sell, feel free to reach out. Happy to
yeah,
talk.
awesome.
Yeah,
Well, Phillip, man, I really appreciate our conversation. Appreciate the value of
100%.
your time, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Hope I learned a lot from you. Thanks for sharing some of your wisdom, brother. And
For sure.
hopefully we I may catch you up in Boston again here
Yeah,
shortly.
we'll see you in Boston, man.